Hello there, and welcome to Do You Like Films? Today I'm joined with Sean, as normal.
Hello.
Ooh, and Michael.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about remakes and reboots and how it kind of affects the way that cinematography is going forward. So, for instance, let me just give you a definition of a remake. It's to make something again, but different, you know? That defines what that is, right?
Yeah.
And a reboot, it comes referenced with a computer system to boot or to be booted again, which isn't the actual one.
That's because I think you looked up the wrong definition.
No, I did. The second one is in serial definition. To reboot means to discard all continuity in established series in order to recreate its characters, timeline, and backstory from the beginning. So that's essentially what a reboot and a remake, is. So if we start off with Sean here, can you give me a really good remake that you really enjoyed over the last, however long you've been alive?
A remake. See, now you've laid the foundations as to what a reboot is and a remake is. They sometimes kind of meld together, which is difficult to differentiate. So I kind of wrote down a few ones here before we started the podcast. I've got down The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
I've not seen the original, but The Thing from the 80s is an awesome movie, so I don't know if that constitutes a remake or a reboot. I think it's a remake.
It is. I typed it in Google and it
All
came
right,
up
okay.
to a remake.
Thank you, Google.
Yeah, thanks, Google.
So I've got down The Thing. I've also got down Dread, but I guess that's technically a reboot because it's...
Yeah, it's so strange,
Yeah.
even though you've just given a definition of what's what there. Like, I was thinking of the Evil Dead film. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And you've seen the original as well. See, that would, I guess, be a remake because it's, the same setting, it's sort of a group of friends, but there's no character of Ash, so it's not strictly a remake because it's not, they haven't redone the character of Ash, who was really important. It's just almost like the scares and things are the same. So with Dread, the Sylvester Stallone one is a completely different film. Like,
I really like that
a massive thing in the Dread universe is that he doesn't take his helmet off, and I think he takes his helmet off in the first minute in the thing, but in this one he doesn't take his helmet off. So it's so hard to differentiate what is a reboot and what is a remake at times. And I think Dread's a good example.
While we're talking about Dread, actually, can I get on the Samuel Jackson hate train like I'm normally on? Because I don't like Samuel Jackson and I don't understand why he was in... Wait, he was in RoboCop. Forget it.
We'll get to RoboCop later on, yeah.
Any excuse to slag
Well...
Samuel Jackson off.
Give me a
Yeah,
second.
come on. In the first podcast, you're slagging off Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
And you're slagging off Sam Jackson.
I'm just trying to get the hate train going today.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to get people to hate us as well. Because we're linked to you by proxy.
I guess so, but that gives us more views.
Okay, here's something you're going to hate as well, because we were talking before the podcast.
Yeah.
I really, really, really liked the remake, reboot, whatever it is, of the 2014 Godzilla. I thought it was a great movie.
Right.
I loved pretty much everything about it. I understand why people don't like it. There are many reasons, but for those reasons, I actually quite like it. I like the fact that it builds up to this big climax and everything's like, oh, you don't see Godzilla the monster like throughout the whole movie until the end. I'm like, yeah, great. I was waiting, I was anticipating, and then it's like, yeah, but the Bryan Cranston's brilliant, and then he died. Yeah, spoiler alert.
Who are you talking to? Who's this guy?
This is just Joe Blow on the street.
Okay,
this is any person that
it's a
says
natural
that it's a bad
conversation.
movie. I'm like, yeah, but that was cool. It was out of left field. You expected Bryan Cranston to be this big hero, and he wasn't, and that was great. And I just really liked the movie. I thought it was good.
With a character like Godzilla, because he's been remade so many times, would it mean that he's been rebooted every single time?
Well, the 2001 was a reboot because it's for like Western audiences, and I guess the same one of the new one as well, because primarily it is Japanese.
Yeah,
from
guy in a
like
rubber
Toho and
mask,
stuff.
sort of stomping on small buildings.
The classic, the fun kind, the decent. Because I don't know if you guys ever have watched any of the Japanese ones, but like when they released the 2001, Japan was so pissed that it was so shit that they released another Godzilla after that one.
Oh, really?
And they basically said that the one that was in America was just a baby. It wasn't even Godzilla. They just properly cancelled
the
it
whole
out.
of Japan.
They modded it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they were just like, nah.
This is what we think of you.
Yeah. So, and I heard they're bringing out another one soon as well, like a proper classic one.
Yeah, well, sort of with time, movies only get better and better, and CGI and effects and budgets get a lot bigger. So I'm sure that Japan will be able to.
I think that you've said that CGI gets better and things like that. I think some films lend themselves to be remade, like Clash of the Titans. Although I don't actually think it's a particularly great film, when something has all mythical creatures and things like that, it does lend itself to be made now rather than how long ago it was, because of the technology we have now. So there are some films that I think are warranted to be remade and rebooted, but there are some films, I was going to ask you both, like, what films do you think just should never be remade? The Godfather is a film that's pretty much universally considered to be the best film ever. Like, if that got remade now, would there just be like, why the fuck are they doing that?
There are lots of caveats to that as well, because you've got to think why it's being remade and who it's being remade for. Not necessarily it's going to be remade for the people that like the movie. And I hate saying this because people say this to me all the time. They're like, because RoboCop, when that came out, like in the 80s, I loved it. I thought it was like one of the greatest movies ever made. Then it got remade and I just hated it. And a lot of people were like, well, it's technically not for you because it's being remade for another audience. And I get that. And I guess The Godfather would be remade for this new audience. And if you cast somebody that's an amazing actor by today's standards, you know, you put in I'm just trying to think of a really good, you put in a Daniel Day-Lewis, or you put in...
Go straight for Daniel Day.
Yeah, I was thinking like a method actor, somebody that really gets into the role, or a Leo DiCaprio who's down with the kids, or a Tom Hardy. And then you go, okay, this could be interesting. And then you attach a different director, a new director, or an established director that's had a few big hits. You know, you put Alejandro Inarritu in there, the guy that did like Birdman, The Revenant, and things like that, and you attach big names to it, and then you go, okay, I'm interested because I like those names, and I think it might be pretty good, you know, but who knows?
I think like one of the worst remakes is when, like, I'm going to sound like a total weeaboo on this podcast, but like when it's Japanese to English films. So like Old Boy, for instance, like the remake of that.
I didn't mind that.
Oh, mate, it was absolute trash compared to the original.
I love the original so much, but I think, considering how I went into it thinking, why would you remake this? I genuinely thought it was all right.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you hear all these accounts of, I mean, like Ghost in the Shell's being done again. I mean, that might be okay. I don't obviously know. But generally, when it's like from Japanese to English, it's a bit shitter. Really. That's how I find. Right. Yeah. But yeah, Mikey, what about you? What's a good remake for you?
Again, I find it's such blurred lines between reboot and remake, because the Hulk and the Incredible Hulk, I mean, there's only 5 years between those films, which is such a small amount for not a sequel. And it's not a remake because it's a completely different story. Well, it's not complete, like, it shares similarities, but it's got different characters in it.
Well,
and
I guess
things like
if
that.
you take Curtis's sort of description at the start, it's taking the same characters but removing all the continuity from the first one. I guess that would be a reboot, because it's still Bruce Banner, it's still the Incredible Hulk, and it's still, you know, he gets the gamma rays and he turns into a green guy, but then it's a different actor, it's a different time, there are a few different characters in there, there's different motivations.
If that makes sense, then for a reboot, a remake would not keep continuity from the first one, would it? You're remaking the first film. Have you seen, you know, they made Psycho with Vince Vaughn in like 1998. They did it shot for shot.
Yeah.
Which I think's pointless.
Yeah, that is just pointless, but that's removing continuity. Otherwise, you're saying both these things happened with a remake. So I'm saying your definitions are shit, mate.
Well, this definition for a remake says make something again or differently. Reboot.
That would be removing all continuity, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you could really. It is very blurred lines. Look, I'm going to draw some blurred lines. No one can see that.
That's not blurry. That's just scribbling. You're ruining the audio, Curtis. Come on.
That's okay.
Shall we just say?
I've really ruined the audio, huh?
Shall we just say that we can kind of clump remakes and reboots into one kind of thing, because essentially there are blurred lines between the two. It's what's a remake, what's a reboot.
I think I think there's characters that lend themselves to be rebooted. Like superhero films, I think are completely on themselves to be rebooted
Mm.
because you've got the character there, and then you've got so many different stories you can do with it. And if you're not happy with what's come previously, just start again.
Yeah.
And
it's like one
it
of the
happens
third
in the-
Spider-Man, aren't we, really? Reboot.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time in the comics anyway. They reach a certain point where they go, this is the point of no return. What do we do now? Okay, we'll just go back to the beginning. We'll start again, and we'll have Batman, and this time we'll change his parents' death slightly differently, and then this leads Batman in a different direction, and they constantly reboot the comics. So I don't see why they can't do that with movies, but at least they're telling a different story. Whereas if you've got Evil Dead, let's say, it's made in the 70s, 80s by Sam Raimi. It's a great story about sort of kids in a cabin. They unearth this book, and then you do the same thing, but in 2014, 15, or whatever it was. Where's the originality? Where does the story go? There's still a tree rape scene. There's still craziness in a cabin. There's still a weird, like, is she a zombie? Is she possessed?
I'm stuck on you saying kids in a cabin because I thought it was a really good name for a song.
We're the kids in the cabin. Whoa! That's a remake of a song.
That is.
Is it a reboot of a song?
I don't know.
Anyway, carry
But,
on, Mike,
like-
as you were saying.
But I think, in answer to your original question, The Departed is. I've never actually seen the original that it's based on. I think it's Chinese or Japanese. That might be a bit offensive to say, but
What are these?
yeah, one of those guys. The Departed for me is just a phenomenal film, and I think that, like we talked about Psycho earlier, and you said, "What's the point in making a film shot for shot?" Is there more of a point of making a foreign film to an English film? You get a bigger audience
Yeah.
by doing it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Psycho is an American movie remade for an American audience. And it's like, why did you do that? I can understand. There's any of you guys seen I think it's an Austrian movie called Funny Games?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have. Yeah.
Incredible movie. And then they remade that shot for shot for American
American-
audiences.
oh,
And it's like,
awful.
come on, just put that movie in theaters and just people can read subtitles. Come on, don't be lazy. You don't
Yeah,
have
but
to-
that's you said. It's one thing saying it and having that opinion, but people are lazy,
Yeah.
and people,
I do it
would
sometimes
prefer
as well,
to watch the American version. So it does kind of make sense to me that if you've got a foreign film for the mass audience, maybe it does make more sense to just do a shot for shot, but just with American actors. And they're sort of doing a different take on it, aren't they? They're not going to do exactly the same performance as the guy in the French film. Or do you reckon that other film industries from not Hollywood and England ever remake our films? That's not something I've never looked into, because we always
that's
take
very interesting.
ideas from their films, things like
And they
that.
do with our series, don't they? Like,
Yeah, they do with our TV shows. But I wonder if they take.
what's a really good English film?
well,
Dawn of the Dead, right? That's
Yeah.
a quite a good English film.
Is there a Japanese Pete of the Dead?
Pete out of the Dead. Maybe.
take-
Cornetto.
take The Office for example. It's a UK based TV show. It was remade in America, and they're doing it all over the world, and they're doing their own one. Because I recently found out that there's a Finnish version just being made and stuff like
Really?
that. And the UK and the US take a lot of inspiration from Scandinavian countries as well, like Norway and Denmark and Sweden and things like that. So I guess they are dipping into our creative pool, but it's not widely known. Probably because we're not in those countries. We're in the UK, and we see these movies come over here and be remade and rebooted, and we're like, we'll just watch the Japanese version. It's just better.
Also about the In-Betweeners as well. That's been done, isn't it? I think it was in America.
Yeah. Well, they've done The In-Betweeners. They've done Shameless. They've done The
Oh, yeah,
Office.
Shameless,
and they just take everything good that we've got and then just go, yeah, we're just going to make it Americanized.
Not good.
Don't you find that horror characters really lend themselves towards being rebooted? And
Oh yeah, totally. Like Friday the 13th.
yeah, like in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a remake of Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Evil Dead, and they're just the ones
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texas Chainsaw
Yeah.
Massacre. That gets, I don't know how many beginnings and things we've had, and what is continuity anymore. Like with that, the original one, 1970s, I think, and then they had a few sequels, and then
A few.
yeah, and then they had Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, then they had Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Does the 3D one follow on from the beginning, or is that its own thing, or you get lost along the way?
You really do.
And the X-Men franchise, they called it a soft reboot, didn't they, when they started doing First Class and things like that? But that's actually in continuity because that was leading up towards.
Yeah. I guess maybe they wanted to
Right.
change history a little bit, and then if you think of it as like a fork in the road, like X-Men 1, 2, and 3 took the right-hand turn. I guess you could include maybe Origins Wolverine in there. And then they thought, right, we'll go a bit further back and then we can lead up to this fork in the road and then we'll take a left turn instead of a right turn. We can sort of almost branch off and create our own continuity in that respect. And I think, well, I don't know, maybe sometime soon, like everything's going to reach a certain point. Like you mentioned, superheroes, we're just going to have this jumping off point where maybe we'll just stop and then we'll start again and we'll recast Captain America. We'll recast
give it like
Iron Man.
10, 15 years, there'll be Harry Potter again. Or
Yeah, but like,
I've heard
can
talks
you see that actually happening? There's 8 Harry Potter films. Like, surely it
they'll
would...
have to have a gimmick about it, but definitely they'll redo it again at some point because there's so much love for that franchise. The same as like Lord of the Rings and Back to the Future and stuff like that. I reckon. I mean, even if we're dead, like there'll be a reboot at some point. Like 100%, dude. When you get a good idea and then other people latch onto it, it's going to be done.
Yeah, like, I was looking at some of these in, I think just this year alone, or the end of last year, we had Point Break, Ben-Hur, Total Recall.
Yeah.
But I think they lend themselves a bit better to be remade. Something like Harry Potter, I can't see them making 8 of the same films again because it's based on that book. The stories are in there. I guess unless they decided to leave stuff out and take stuff from the book that they left out originally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know what you
can't
mean
see-
though. Like them kind of franchises that you just said aren't. I mean, they were big back in the day, so Point Break and like Total Recall and stuff. But not many people really remember them now until the remakes came. Really, whereas you're talking about Back to the Future, Jurassic Park.
Well, yeah, can you see?
know what I
Can you
mean?
imagine Back to the Future being remade?
Yeah, it will happen, I reckon, at some point. I mean, when we're talking about reboots, I mean, Jurassic World's a reboot, isn't it? Really, it's a reboot of the whole franchise.
Yeah, but it still
It-
takes
it-
in continuity,
yeah.
so I guess that's
It's continuing.
more of a
Yeah, I guess
reboot,
it's a
not a remake, because that would just be Jurassic Park again, wouldn't it?
yeah. It kind of is at the
Yeah,
same
I
time.
guess so, yeah.
I don't know. That's a grey area, but I watched it again last night. I like that film.
Jurassic World.
Yeah, I actually really like Jurassic World.
That'll be another topic for another day.
It's better than Jurassic Park 3.
Well, yeah. What do you guys think about the Rise and Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes series
Ooh.
reboot remake?
Yeah.
I
Because
really love them.
I think they're incredible.
They're
And
amazing films.
They're like, are they remakes of reboots of remakes? Because there was the old, is it Charlton Heston
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
And then there's the Tim Burton one,
With
and then
Matt
there's
Damon.
Tim Burton's
right?
one was more of a remake, wasn't it? Like that was. I haven't actually seen the original Planet of the Apes, but I know that was very, very similar until the end. So that seemed more like a. Is it an homage? Is that the word? When
Yeah,
you're
I
sort of
guess so.
like, oh, how
Yeah.
great was that? And then they sort of put a little bit of theirs take on the end of it. But yeah, I'm so lost with like those films. Are they meant to have anything to do with the 1960 Planet of the Apes?
No, like, well,
Is that telling
it's
us
like
how
the
they
big-
got here?
Yeah,
or-
yeah. It tells you the story of what happened in between when the guy goes up in the spaceship and then time goes fucking weird. Basically,
So
when
will
the
these
monkeys took over,
will these films end with a guy being sent into?
it'll
space?
probably end with an ape starting civilization of their world. I'm guessing.
Who knows? But it's exciting to look forward to because
Yeah.
there was recently a trailer for War for the Planet of the Apes, and I hope that it sort of rounds off this trilogy in a nice fashion, and then probably maybe 10 years from now they'll go, hang on, Planet of the Apes, that was a good thing, wasn't it? Should we just reboot that again and get the
Yeah.
next big guy in and redo it all again?
Do you think that it's lazy from Hollywood by remaking and rebooting? Do you think there should be more original ideas, or do you think it's because it's safer that this has made money before? We'll make that again in a different way, or
I think it depends on who's got creative control, really, like over the actual reboot and stuff. Because if it's like the original director and he's like, you know what,
like
I've
we
left
saw
some
Mad
stuff
Max,
out
the
and that.
director, come back to his
Yeah,
franchise recently, and
Reboot, remake?
That's like that is the definition of blurred lines. I think with
Yeah.
Mad Max, you know, is he the same character? Like is he Mel Gibson again? Like what?
No, it's Tom Hardy.
No, yeah.
I mean, that one's a very confusing one. But so in that case, you don't mind it. Like you saw that guy come back to his world that he'd created.
They created and like continued on it. Like if you give creative control to the right person and they do the right things with it, then it's fine, I think. But then when you do get into like companies that are like, oh, this was a franchise, let's make it dumb and stupid.
I think it depends on the story as well.
Yeah.
I think the reason I despised the 2014 RoboCop so much was that
Samuel Jackson. Yeah, I know, I understand, dude. Like, honestly, that guy, any job.
didn't even have a problem with it. I thought it was fine. It was just a story. It was very similar. They changed like the way he turned into RoboCop slightly different because I think that they had to do it for a PG audience. So
Yeah, but the first one was so
it
cool.
was so brutal.
It was so good.
It was
dude.
so good, but it's essentially the same story. It's Alex Murphy, he's a cop, then he has an accident, they put him in a robot body, and then he saves the day against, the bad guys and the huge robot and stuff like that. And it's like, we've kind of seen that before. It was the first RoboCop, and it was awesome, and it was just bizarre and bonkers, and it had these weird, like, sort of pseudo-political messages in and all these weird things, and that guy that says, I'd buy that for $1. And that was awesome. And
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
and even the effects looked so much better back then because it was the actor wearing the big clumpy suit, whereas you could see sort of parts of the new one was CGI and it just looked a bit
Yeah.
too
Do
pristine.
you think that's one of the problems with reboots and the reboots?
Remoots?
Yeah, reboots.
That's what we'll call them, yeah.
remakes.
Reboot and a remake that we can't tell the difference. It's a
reboot.
reboot.
Yeah. Like, do you think that's one of the problems? Because, like, back in the day, those films, like, they so astounded us with their technology and graphics, but now we've become so mainstream, and it's just like...
I definitely think there's something in you remember things better than what they actually were. It still means RoboCop was a great film. I love that film so
'cause
much.
I went back and watched the original before I watched the remake.
That
and
theme, man.
so good.
But you definitely you have a memory, and so it's possible that there's children that went to see that feel the same way you do about your RoboCop. That they might talk to their kids about, I saw RoboCop at the cinema in 2014 and it was amazing. Samuel Jackson was amazing in it.
Yeah, okay.
How gutted will we be if Samuel Jackson's our one viewer? We just lost him because Curtis.
Well, I bloody love you, Sam Jackson. I think you're bloody great. Be in more movies.
Mace Windu.
That's it. He's lost. We just lost him.
Good.
That was it.
Right,
It'll just try and apply for a job here. That's all we'll do. And I'm like, well, I'm out of work.
We don't really need. We do everything ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
Creative control,
Creative control.
on-air talent.
Yeah.
Will we get
Sometimes
rebooted
yeah,
Hopefully.
with a better formula?
We'll reboot ourselves and then just like kick.
I want to be
one of us
played
out.
by Tom Hardy.
I've got a question to you both then. So we've spoken about reboots, remakes. What about with these Disney films at the moment? They are essentially just remaking an animated film and putting it into live action. Now, is that just pointless? Like the film exists in an animated film. Do you gain anything from it from seeing them CGI'd animals and like Jungle Book, for example?
Yes, because Bill Murray was Baloo.
Yeah, I thought
And
honestly,
Christopher Walken was the orangutan.
yeah, I thought Jungle Book it was fantastic, but I'm just asking, like, is there, like, is that fine in that case where it's in one medium of animation and then it goes to CGI and real people?
I think it's interesting, So it's like...
It doesn't have to be a certain amount of time before you can do it. Is that
I'm
what
gonna-
I
I'm
have
gonna
to do?
correlate
It?
it
That's what I
with-
was about to say. Like, I think there needs to be a certain amount of time before you can reboot
Yeah.
a movie, and it has to be over a decade at least, because some movies are coming out so close to the original that it's just like, what is even the point? Like, The Jungle Book was made in the 30s, was it? Or was
I
it
think it was
later?
50s.
Yeah,
It's
50s or something
old.
crazy like that. So it's literally been 60 years before it's been remade, and I think that's a good amount of time. There should be like a statute of limitations on, okay, a movie's been remade, there's a copyright on that for 50 years. You can't even go close to that, without being like hounded by lawyers and, you get your balls cut off because they're like, no, it's too much like the original. You can't do that. You have to wait 50 years.
There is a Jungle Book too, though. There's a lot of those shitty Disney straight to DVD kind of films like that, which is
What is it? Lion King,
gross.
like 2 and 3. Didn't
yeah.
they?
Although that was pretty good, 3.5, 1.5.
But that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody had such good nostalgia, and it was actually a really great movie. Lion King. I've heard that they're going to redo the same thing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
CGI and live action human. There wasn't a human.
Yeah,
live
that's
action,
the.
was there?
I don't know if that'll work as well because I think Jungle Book
I don't know.
works so well because you had that human. So if he was the one you like could
You say that.
imagine
like,
you were him.
Also, Cinderella, the reboot was actually quite good. I didn't mind it
I
at
didn't
all.
even see that.
And I know there's Beauty and the Beast coming out as well, and that I really like Beauty and the Beast anyway, so I'm quite excited for it.
Yeah, and I think
Just
it
to hear that
actually
old
looks quite
theme
good.
again, yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, is it going to be the human element that brings it all together? There's a lot of
Okay.
CGI characters, but you know,
me
Beauty,
put it this
she's going to
way,
be the
right?
person that brings it all together.
The other day, I watched Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
Right, it was great. It was fun. And then I watched the Fairly Odd Parents movie where it was live action, and I really enjoyed it because you got to saw people in real life that were actually cartoons.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they did with Drake from Drake and Josh, or Josh from Drake and Josh. One of the two.
The fat one and the skinny one.
Skinny
Or
one.
the fat one that got skinny.
Skinny one. But yeah, that guy. But I kind of enjoyed it. It was just nice to see things from an animated perspective flipped on its side and put, with real humans and actors and props and shit.
Here's another one. I know you're an anime fan.
Oh yeah, konnichiwa.
Death Note.
Oh yeah.
Did you like the anime to live action
See,
retelling of that?
I didn't mind it. I mean, I didn't exactly want to go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was nice to see the characters portrayed in real life rather than just their animated counterparts.
And what do you think about them redoing it again? Because I heard that they're bringing out another one, and like Willem Dafoe is going to be voicing
Yeah,
Ryuk.
that's going to be the American one, I think.
Yeah, and
yeah. 'Cause-
I'm sort of mildly interested by that, but does that make me sort of
again, it depends who's got creative control.
exactly? And it depends on the story, but I guess you can't really change too much of the story of Death Note because it's based all around. It's just how interesting they make it and how well written and how well cast it's
It
made.
is weird how animes are now coming more into light with just Americans and everybody else. Like with Ghost in the Shell coming out and stuff like that. Like I'd never expect a Ghost in the Shell film to come out. And they were talking about Akira having that as a live action movie, but they've been doing that for fucking years talking about it.
But the thing is, do you think it's come to this point where Hollywood and the creators behind writing and directing and coming up with the concepts, they're just literally running out of ideas? They've come to a point where they're like, I literally cannot think of a single original idea. So they just go, we need to make $70 million this year. How are we going to do that? I don't know. I can't think of an idea. Let's just remake movie X from the 80s. People know that. They've got nostalgia for it. That'll make $70 million and we can keep our bosses off our backs and breathe for another day. And then they're like, we need to come up with an original idea. I guess this is kind of original because, it's America and Japan. They're two different countries, so we can just steal from them and redo it. And then to be like, hey, it was a big success.
I don't believe that they're out of ideas because I think you've always got talent that are writing and putting ideas forward to these companies and things. I think it's safer to remake something that already has a fan base because as much as the geeks and things go crazy and slag, oh my God, you're remaking that, they're going to go see it.
Yeah.
So you've already got a small audience that will be interested. And then if it is good and gets some momentum through word of mouth, it's gonna be more
Snowball
popular.
effect, isn't it?
Yeah, the snowball effect. But when you make these original ideas, I genuinely think there's a fear of who's going to come see it. Do you know what I mean? Like Transformers getting getting made. People are like, oh, I love Transformers as a kid. There's so many people that would like. It sounds stupid. You're making a film based on a toy that was really popular. That sounds like a silly idea, but there's so many people that would affect. G.I. Joe, they make money because there's a name attached to it.
Yeah, but there's something about taking nostalgia and making that into profit. And then there's taking something that had an idea, somebody came up with, and then just taking that and doing it again. I get why they do like a Ninja Turtles movie, a Transformers movie, a G.I. Joe movie, all these kinds of 80s properties that we all played with as kids and, watched the cartoons and watched the shows and stuff like that. I understand that because we were probably the first people there going, Transformers as a movie, that's really cool, because the CGI nowadays is brilliant. And then watched it and went, what the hell's going on? But I understand that. But then taking one thing and copying it and duplicating it and just kind of retouching it up, and
If it's tried and tested, like if it does work, if they've made money from it, why would they not?
no, I completely understand, and I'm not sort of saying don't do it. Well, I am saying don't do it. What I'm saying is I understand why they do it, but I don't agree with doing it.
Like for instance, right? When you guys were just talking then, I just had Little Butchers on the old IMDb.
Butchers means look for any Americans.
That's
For Samuel Jackson here.
Cockney rhyming slam. Butcher's hook. Look.
Yeah. So, and I looked at when the first Transformers movie came out, and it was 2007. So that means it's basically 10 years old now. So the fact that that's been remade for like another generation, and that generation carries on, they're like 10 years old now, so they know they've established what Transformers is. Therefore, they
I don't
might be
consider it
interested
a
in a new
remake.
one.
I consider it just an adaptation of a cartoon, of a comic book, of toys.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's not RoboCop and then we've redone it again because it's 30, 40 years later or whatever.
No.
It's different, and there's so many. We mentioned it really early on. There's so many blurred lines, and it's hard to know what constitutes a remake, what constitutes a reboot, what constitutes an adaptation. What's different? What's new? Is it okay to steal from this but not from this? And that's where the whole debate comes around again.
When you said earlier about how some films you should have 50 years, and I think that's a really good idea for some films. Something like Jungle Book, I think that would be a really good idea. But what about something like the superhero films with Spider-Man? He makes them a lot of money. Do you think that they should wait 20 odd years before they remake another Spider-Man, or do you think if it makes sense, it makes sense? Like Amazing Spider-Man was made because I think if they hadn't made it, they'd run out of. They've got these weird contracts where if they don't make films in a certain amount of time, it doesn't make a certain amount of money, the licensing goes back to Marvel. I think that's applicable for the X-Men as well. So do you think?
But then clearly they're not making it for making its sake. They're making it because they can retain the rights and then make more money off it. They're not thinking creatively. They're not thinking about what's best for the Spider-Man character.
That's what I think Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 clearly were. I think those films were exactly that. But now with him being in Civil War, it really felt like they wanted him. Like you could really feel like...
I reckon it's fine to reboot something if the world's in that kind of relevant state. So, for instance, rebooting Spider-Man isn't that big of a deal, although there's a short gap in between each one, because superheroes are really big and relevant still now. But, if you get into like different kind of films and stuff, like, I don't know, I can't think of anything right now.
Well, I just think, imagine how much more of an impact it would have had if you had the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies in the early 2000s, and then nothing until he popped up in Civil War. How much more of an impact that would have had, and how great it would have been. You'd been like, okay, it's been quite a few years, maybe even 10 years before he's been around, and you want that longing for that character. But the fact you keep bringing out these characters over and over again, just keep pushing them out. Fantastic Four, the latest 2015, 2014 one. It's just a sham of a movie that they just put out there because they had to, just so they could retain the rights, so they could make a few more bucks. But that's just corporate Hollywood, just bullshit. That's not creative. That's not art. That's not making a movie because you have passion and heart and a desire to do that. It's just, oh, well, we've got to make a movie, so let's just get a bunch of people together and make a movie.
Yeah. And that wasn't the right way to do it at all.
No. I think that we could probably go on and on and on about remakes and reboots, and we should probably do a part 2 further on down the line. Do you agree?
Yeah. I may as well, yeah.
And we'll leave this podcast right here. If you have any comments, feel free to hit us up. We've got an email address that I think you lovingly set up there, Curtis.
Yeah.
So, do you like films at gmail.com?
That's the exact one right there, pal.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very
So,
much.
yeah, if you have any questions, email us there. And we would love to know in the comments below what are your favourite remakes, reboots, or remoots. So enjoy, and thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We are the Films Podcast, and today...
What about good morning?
Oh, now, you know what? It's never a good morning. You have to wake up. So, that's terrible.
And it's the Do You Like Films podcast? Not the films
They already
podcast.
fucked it up.
It's the films
It's not
podcast.
do you like films?